Morning, I'm Tim. Welcome to my stream. This is a stream of my workouts for the year, doing a body transformation. The thing that's different about my body transformation as to others is I'm not using any sort of supplements. So I'm not taking any like protein supplements, no protein shakes, protein powders, no creatine, no pre-workouts, no BCAAs, nothing extra. I'm trying to get all my nutrients purely from the food that I eat. I'm not opposed to supplements. I think if you want to take supplements, great, and you should do whatever works best for you. I've taken supplements in the past. I just don't know if it's absolutely necessary for me to take them in order to hit my current goals. So I'm going to see how that works out. Um, my secondary reason for not taking them is that one of my kids started preschool, and preschool is expensive. So cutting out supplements saves me $100 a month. That's $1,200 a year, and in this economy, every little bit helps. So yeah, that is it. Gonna be doing shoulder exercises today. Gonna start off with lateral raise. Again, this week and until July 1st, going to be focusing on doing the lower weight and higher rep counts. So, as opposed to previously doing higher weights with lower reps, typically I was doing at least 10 reps a set, pushing it up to 15 till July 1st. Trying to drop some of this fat off and see how it goes. So, here we go. One more thing. I'm excited. I think today's gonna be a good day. I'm gonna go to the beach. So it's supposed to be a hot day. Although I haven't checked it since I woke up. Sometimes it changes. So like when my kids are sneezing. I'm gonna start off with the 10-pound weights, 4.53 kilograms. I'm excited to go to the beach. For obvious reasons, the beach is fun, but I'm excited to go. The nice part about when you go to the beach is it gives you a chance to get away from allergies. I'm looking forward to kind of getting into the ocean, getting a lot of pollen out of my nose, and having a day where I can breathe nice. Especially for my kids. Feel bad, but yeah, my kids allergies. It's really hoping that wouldn't be a problem for them, but it is. But should be coming up to the end of my allergy season soon. We had some late rain, so I don't know how how long it will last. But typically by like July, I'm done. Usually by mid June, I've been done with my allergies. But the last couple of years, we've had like later rains, so it seems like it lasts longer when it rains longer. My kids love the water. I'm excited to be at the beach for that. My one kid does like they don't care about how cold it is because we live in the Northern California, so the water's still cold, but they still love it. A lot of fun for them. So with 10 pounds, and move up to 15 or move up to 20 pounds. Last week we went hiking on this mountain, and I found a cow tongue that's something I've either left there or not eaten. And I thought like it's been like a week, almost a week, and I thought it would be gone. But we went hiking yesterday and it was still there. I'm just surprised. There's so many vultures, but it's like underneath a tree, so I don't guess they don't see it or can't get to it. It won't get to it because there's not a chance for them to fly out if there's a problem. But that's something would have eaten it by now. It's always it's just thing when animals won't eat certain meat. Like there was a horse. The first time I ever like saw a horse dead, it just like took forever to rot because nothing ate it. There were no coyotes didn't want it. The vultures didn't want it, and it was in the middle of field. Like there was no reason why vultures couldn't go down and eat it. They just didn't eat it. I always thought they ate everything, but sometimes it seems like they're just not interested. All right, it's the 20 pounds, 9.07 kilograms. Definitely can fill it with the higher reps, the difference. And one of the things I love, or I find interesting about weightlifting and the internet is everyone has so much advice and opinions on what's best. And I think like when I read someone's opinion, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're speaking from experience of what works best for them or what they like to do best, and you know, decide whether or not I want to implement their advice. But I think the big thing is finding out what works best for you. Like I said yesterday, I met this 83-year-old over the weekend who at 83 was training to do decathlon, and that was the big thing he said when I asked him like what was the secret to like staying in shape. He said, I do what I like to do, and I don't do all the other stuff. I don't do something I don't like doing. I just focus on doing activities that I like doing. Like, oh, cool, man. I think for me, that's the hardest part about dropping weight is I like doing big weights, even to my detriment. I like lifting heavier weights. I I do it. I would say that I have dropped more weight this last week doing it this way versus before. So and hopefully it's fat and not dropping muscle. There we go. I know I talked about like at the beginning of my workouts. I talk about my secondary reason for not taking any supplements being preschool is expensive, and I gotta say though, I really feel like I got a good bang for my buck with my kids preschool. I took them out for the summer because they're gonna go into TK. Um, but I took them out so that they could, have a summer before they go to regular school. And I got some workbooks though, so that they wouldn't fall behind or so they wouldn't lose what they were doing. And I'm just really impressed with how much my kids learn and how well they do this workbook. So I definitely glad we paid the money that we paid. It's nice. I really think there's a strong possibility that they'll be reading before they get to kindergarten, and I'm really excited about that. I love reading, and I cannot wait for them to be able to read because I'm going to use reading to try and keep them off of tablets and electronics as much. Expand their imagination. Help them be able to not be just sucked in by stuff. And it's hard now because if they're bored, if we go out somewhere and they're bored, like it's silly to not let them use the tablet. In my opinion, I know parents are like, "Oh no, like you gotta keep them off it," but if they're sitting around and there's nothing for them to do, what's the point? Like my dryer broke this last month, so taking my kid to the laundromat, I'm gonna take a tablet because I'm not. They don't need to sit in a laundromat and just be bored. But when they're able to read, they won't take the tablet to the laundromat. They'll take a book and they'll read and they'll learn to love it, just like I loved reading. Hopefully they love it. We'll have to revisit it if they absolutely hate reading. But I'm excited. I'm excited for them to read. There's so many books that I enjoyed as a kid that I'm looking forward to them being able to read. The first chapter book I ever read as a kid was Tom Tom Sawyer. My dad, the summer I was 7, my dad um, told me, I forget what the reward was, but there was some reward if I could finish reading Tom Sawyer, and I loved it. It was a good book, and that kind of started it off. Even when I was like not doing good in school, I always like was reading. I'd stay up late at night reading all the time. And like I said, and I feel better about my kids being sucked into a book than being sucked into a tablet. Although I, I do acknowledge that there's a lot that kids learn from watching videos and things. I think it's, you know, I think it's silly to be like, oh no, like don't let them ever be on an electronic device. It's a fast way to learn. All right, so I did 3 sets with the 20 pounds, 3 sets of 15. I'm gonna go for an extra set, see how many I can do. I'm just gonna stop when my form starts going bad. That's 13. Same thing yesterday. Going for the extra set only made it to 13. when doing the bicep curls. Gonna go down to 15 pounds. I've said many times, but this lateral raises are like the hardest exercise I do. It's like the exercise that takes the longest to get better at. I see 15 pounds, 6.8 kilograms. All right, let's go again. All right, I'm gonna move on to the shoulder press. You see me. I'm not short that 1 by 5. You send me. All right. Going to the 40-pound dumbbells. All right. Hey, what's up, King Barrel? It's going good. It's going good. Just chugging along. Moving up to the hitting the 40 pounds, 18.14 kilogram dumbbells for the shoulder press. So yeah, like switching to 15 reps versus 10 reps is making feels different. Definitely harder, and even harder than I thought it was gonna be. Even with dropping the weight, going to 15, because I dropped off. I was doing sets of 10 with 50s before, and dropped off 10 pounds, went down to the 40s with this last week and this week doing the 15 reps, and it's definitely harder than I thought it was going to be. Different. I'm glad you popped up for a second there. I was getting lost in my own head. Every now and then, like when I'm working out, like I just start thinking about something and end up going down a rabbit hole in my own head and losing track of time or how much time I'm wasting. Bro says, so you're going for more reps rather than more weight? Yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's done a lot of weightlifting and a lot of body conditioning and stuff, and I was talking about just the like frustration of just wasn't really gaining weight, but wasn't really losing weight, and wanted to lose weight more. And he just said, suggested just switching it up for a little bit to the higher reps and lower weight, and kind of help burn through some fat. So giving it a shot till July 1st. If I don't really like the results, I'll just switch back. But giving it a chance to kind of work. I feel like you need to give things a little bit more than a month to really kick in and tell if it's something you want to do or not. Mostly just trying to get some fat to fall off. Kimura says, I guess they have different strengths and weaknesses. I'm just giving it a shot. Just seeing. I said the last couple of months, even probably starting in March, I just wasn't really losing weight, and I hadn't changed anything about my eating, but I was just increasing weight, and I was getting frustrated, and I realized that it was just, I was putting on muscle because my waist, like my pants and stuff, weren't like fitting any different. It wasn't like I didn't feel like I was getting fatter, but it was just bulking up, and then it kind of plateaued. My kids just woke up. Kind of just plateaued, and then just trying to burn off that weight. Trying to burn off the fat, not the muscle.
Nice side is it's summer now, so I'm going to be doing some more running outside, which is going to help with that as well. Oh, man. Kimbo says, even if it's not completely different, there's something to be said about shaking things up. Yeah. And definitely. Kind of like a little change of scenery. Hold on, I'll be back. I gotta check on my kid real fast. All right. Hero says, I recently got sick of jogging, so I switched to walking longer while listening to podcasts or books. That's good, man. What books do you listen to? All right, I'm gonna be going down from the 40s to 30s. I was hoping to hit 3 sets of 15 with the 40s, but I did 2 sets of 15 and 1 set of 7. And I'm good with that. It was better than last week. So. Last week I only managed 1 set of 15, 1 set of 14, and 1 set of 8, which is almost what I did this time, actually, just in different groupings. We're gonna listen to a D&D podcast. Oh, that's cool, man. I've never gotten into Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like that's a world that would definitely suck me in, though. Like it'd be very very hard for me to get out of it. I would love it. I'm 100% certain I would love Dungeons and Dragons. It's all professional voice actors playing D&D. So podcast is them playing D&D and acting out their characters. So it's basically like a audio TV show. That's cool. Did you ever see there's a YouTube channel called Viva La Dirt League, and they've got some funny sketches about playing Dungeons and Dragons. And they're not just making fun of like people that play it. They've got some funny commentaries. And I talked to my buddy that plays Dungeons and Dragons a lot, and like there's one part where they're making fun of people that can't do like the math, so they keep like asking or waiting for somebody to tell them what their rolls add up to. Yeah, that was funny. But he also said that more often than not, he's the one that loses tracks of the rolls. And then there's this funny one where the dungeon master overlooks a flaw in his story that somebody else takes advantage of. So then it like kills the whole campaign, and you see him like scrambling to figure out how to make the campaign interesting again. It's pretty funny stuff. But I think when my kids are older, I'd love to play it. D&D is good fun. I heard like the important part too is just finding a good group to do it with. I got a buddy that he said that he's been the group that he's been with years, but they've been a group for like 14 years, and they have a lot of fun with it. It's got to be a good game if it's something you can play with a group for 14 years. Someone tried to explain D&D to a friend, which made me laugh because the explanation is kind of silly, but honestly, it's true and a big part of why it's fun. Well, I think there's a lot of people that would find it fun. I think there's a lot of people that would find it fun that would make fun of it. But they're doing it because they don't want to unleash their inner nerd. It's adult make believe. Yeah. I got into LARPing a little bit, and the only reason I got out of LARPing is my work schedule conflicted with because we get together on Saturdays, and it was just hard to go because of work. And the only other hard part was that there was a lot of little kids, and even though it's make believe, you're still fighting with swords, and like some of them get really into it and trying to go hard, and you're like, oh man, like how am I not going to eventually get in trouble for hitting someone's kid? Like, even though everyone's signed up a waiver and everybody's like, and you're trying not to hurt people, like eventually it's going to happen. And I don't want to be responsible for hurting someone else's kid on accident. So I kind of dropped off of it. That and the kids, like, a lot of the kids would really embrace the magic. So they'd do like the wizarding classes and stuff and the mage class. And that would just get annoying to have a bunch of little, magic guys running around. And my favorite part was the sword fighting. And I didn't mind special abilities. I thought special abilities were cool, but I like the sword fighting. But when you got somebody hitting you with freezing spells and other stuff all the time, it gets a little old. But it's very cool. If I had the time, there's like an older group that does it too, but they go like harder. I would love to do that. Harping could be fun once I'm more fit. LOL. Yeah. There's this place in Germany that has like this huge, mass immersive um, LARPing festival, and there's all sorts of stuff you have to do to get in, and it looks really cool. Like the only thing that like gives me any pause is things like the movie Hostel, where I see like you think you're playing a LARPing game, and then you know find yourself facing like some guy's real axe, and the next thing you know, you're in his dungeon with shackles, and someone gets to eviscerate you. It's my biggest concern. It's when you have to like pick like your friends that you travel with very really wisely, because you don't want that guy that's like accidentally inserts or accidentally insults the one like local psycho. Like that happens in every like scary movie. Just one guy ruins it for the whole group. My wife and I, we went to Reno for a vacation with some friends, and there was a Wrong Turn marathon. I don't know if you've seen the movie Wrong Turn. It was a horror movie where um, the friends like they take the wrong turn and end up in these backwoods, and these inbred redneck mutants are chasing them around and killing them. And this was like playing on loop. This because there's like I guess there's multiple of them, but they were playing over and over again when we were at the hotel. So we saw them whenever we were like getting ready or we are hanging out playing cards and stuff. And then right after that, we drove from Reno to a Dude Ranch in Sierras for a family reunion, and that's all I could think about the whole time we were out there at night. It's just somebody could come in and try to put you in their big pot to boil or something. Which incidentally was one of my favorite parts of Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know if you ever played Red Dead Redemption 2, but they embrace some cannibals at one point in the game. I used to live in China, and you meet a lot of foreigners And you just meet so many that have no clue about how insulting they're being, how insensitive to someone's culture they're being, and it gets very frustrating and embarrassing. You can definitely see how someone might decide to just take that person out. And I don't mean today's like, you know, extremism of just of insensitivity, but like just a general lack of sensitivity. Like people going to a like Buddhist monastery and touching things that they clearly like that you clearly shouldn't touch. Like that's not something you should be playing with. That's not something you should be touching, or asking just goofball questions or insensitive questions, or being loud when they should be quiet, and taking pictures of things that they probably should ask at the very least to take pictures of, or just skip. But I always try to be respectful and observant. And sometimes that's the problem, is that if you're not being observant when you travel in other countries, you're going to miss social cues that, hey, like that's not what you should do. And especially in China, because the Chinese are very nice, and they don't believe in like, they don't do as much confrontation, like open confrontation. It's all about saving face in China. So like if someone has a problem with you, they generally don't tell you. They tell somebody else, who tells somebody else, and then somebody down the line will maybe clue you in that there's a problem, because they don't want to come to you and insult you by telling you that they're insulted. It's a whole different system of doing things. So unless you really pay attention to what you're doing and people's reaction, it's hard to gauge who is upset with you and who's not. And there's lots of little things that you just can't know unless someone tells you. And that's why you need someone good with you that will clue you into mistakes. And there's little things you just don't know. Like you're not supposed to put you're not supposed to put chopsticks straight up and down in rice. That's a bad sign. You're not supposed to write someone's name in red. You're not really supposed to be using red ink, period, but you definitely don't write someone's name in red. It's a huge insult, dating back to, I guess, when the emperors wrote death warrants in red. So they don't like that. You don't like cross your feet and show the bottom of your shoe at anyone. That's a big no-no. Let's see, there's a lot. You don't call people over like this. You call people like this. Calling people like this is like how you call dogs, and it's very insulting. You definitely don't call Chinese people your dog. That's one that's never like okay to do. And that's from like the Japanese used to call the Chinese their dogs. They would say that they were less than slaves, they were dogs. So that's a very insensitive thing to do there. Kimbro says culture is so interesting. Like each country have their own special rules, beliefs, and assumptions. Yeah, and I think the interesting part when you go to another culture is learning the stories behind why they do certain things. Because it sounds silly, like when someone says, "Oh, you can't write someone's name in red," but then it's interesting when you hear like, "Oh, that's how the emperor used to write out someone's death warrant," and so it's like a curse, and it's bad to write someone's name in red. And like, oh, that's really fascinating that held on for so long. And despite like the cultural revolution, despite being, you know, almost 100 years out from having an emperor, that's still a thing that like holds on. And then also the fascinating part about other cultures is then also having to explain and analyze your own culture. So that's something like I find that I didn't do a lot. There's so many things you take for granted, and then when you have to explain it to someone else, you're like, oh, like why do we why do we do that? That seems very silly, and then you have to kind of get into why, and it's interesting. Language in English, there's so many slang words we use that people say and never really think about the connotation. And like um like there's one, people say like, oh, you gypped me, and people never think about that it's a slang against gypsies. And people who've never ever been around gypsies, I was at work and someone used the term. I was like, hey, just so you know, you might like think about not saying that because you could offend someone and I, it's just because it's at work, and I didn't want, and I was the manager, I didn't want to do paperwork on someone using a random old slang that they didn't realize could have racial connotations to it. And they were completely oblivious that gypsies were even a race. They were like gypsies aren't a thing. I'm like, no, no, they are. They're a real thing. Like, no, that's just like fortune tellers. Like, no, like they're a real people group. They're called the Romani, and trying to explain what gypsies were and Romani were, and even then they didn't like buy it. And they're like, well, none of them are around. I was like, actually, they may Romani people are everywhere. They're not going to tell you, necessarily that they're there. So King Barrel says, yeah, it's interesting what's taboo and not taboo, and what things have certain awful origins. Yeah. Well, that's a fascinating side. Like, I gotta go, but with the way the Chinese call each other, because for years I watched Bruce Lee movies when I was a kid, and Bruce Lee, like, always when he's like fighting and he does the thing, does this, and like the guy gets really mad and he charges him. Well, for years I just assumed it was like because he's saying like, hey, like, come here, like, you're nothing, and it is, but it's like has a different layer of meaning that he's calling him a dog, and he's being super insulting, like one of the biggest insults you could do in the middle of a fight. And that's why the guy gets like all of a sudden like rage filled and attacks him. But if you don't ever go to China, you never know why this is like so insulting to do in a fight. Kimbrough says like this is weird and sounds counterintuitive, but the C word is basically like a term of endearment depending on how you use it. But you're basically asking for a fist fight if you call a random guy mate or champ. Yeah, I think that's the I think Australia, that's a big thing. But here it's not. Um, the other one that's weird is we're different between Europeans and English. I don't know if it's that way in Australia, but in the U.S., your fanny is your butt, and people say fanny. And my aunt was on a train in England. I think she was in England, and an American guy told a girl to sit her fanny down, and a bunch of guys went to beat him up, and they had to like explain, like stop and be like, hey, like that's not what he means. He doesn't mean that. It's not. It's not the same thing. So yeah, here in Australia, I should clarify. Says King Barrel. Um, Here in the U.S., we call prophylactics rubbers, and in England they call rubbers like erasers are rubbers. And I was going to Bible college when I was younger, and there's a bookstore where you buy like different things for class and stuff. And um, a British guy that was studying went in and was asking the lady behind the counter if she sold any rubbers. And it was a very funny moment for them, embarrassing and awkward until they realized what he was talking about. So, like, whenever someone does something crazy or awesome, you call them a mad C or a 6C. But if some guy's being an asshole you in pub, you're gonna say, "Watch yourself, mate," or "Nice going, champ." Yeah, there's I started watching that show, um, Mr. In Between, and I like watching it. I like hearing the difference in slang. I know the Australians and New Zealanders aren't the same, but I was watching a show for a while called The Almighty Johnsons, and it was a New Zealand based show. And that was fascinating to hear their different takes on slang and culture. School is different too to watch. Your flip flops are our thongs. Yeah, we say thongs here too, though, but most people will say flip flops or sandals. You don't hear when we're in SoCal and surfing and stuff like thongs. You'd hear more, but I don't know how that changes. But all right, I gotta go. I'm gonna be in trouble with my wife and kids. All right, God bless you guys. Thanks for stopping by, King Barrel. Appreciate the conversation, man. I love talking about culture and history and stuff. So come on by again. See ya.